This is the session on PennDOT Connects, just in case you were wondering or you wanted another session. Hopefully you want this session. I'm going to start. My name is Stacy Bartels. I'm with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. So we are the metropolitan planning organization for the greater Philadelphia area, which includes 5 counties in Pennsylvania and 4 in New Jersey. And most of you are probably familiar with us, but just in case you aren't, I like to give just that little background on who we are. And I am going to introduce the speakers today. I'm going to do everyone all at once and then let them do their thing, but I'm very pleased because 2 of the 3 are my colleagues. But first I am going to talk about Ryan Whittington. Ryan is a PE with Pennsylvania's Environmental Section Manager and Professional Engineer with PennDOT and HNTB. Private firm, and he is a professional engineer where he serves as an interdisciplinary resource to guide rail, transit, and roadway projects through NEPA, state and federal permitting. In his capacity as PennDOT Connects Coordinator for PennDOT's Engineering District 6, Ryan partners with district project managers and DVRPC to implement the Connects program, helping to guide projects through early coordination and outreach with municipalities and county planning offices where transportation projects are being developed. So that's a lot to be responsible for. Luckily, he has some help from us, and I'm sure from other municipalities as well. But next up, we have Alyson Dressman, who is with DVRPC. She is a senior planner in the Office of Capital Programs. And let's see, at DVRPC, Alyson focuses on project development and implementation for short-range infrastructure initiatives, managing DVRPC's PennDOT Connects program, and supporting the development of the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, which we know as the TIP. Collaborating closely with stakeholders, Alyson works to ensure that projects align with regional objectives while meeting the diverse needs of local communities. Again, not an easy job. And our third panelist or leader, I don't know what it's a roundtable, so, but is Jesse Buerk, also with DVRPC, and Jesse's the Associate Director of Capital Programs and Project Development. Jesse is, in this role, he oversees development and maintenance of the TIP for the 4-county New Jersey portion of the DVRPC region, as well as the TIP for the 5-county PA region. So they each have their own, and they're on different cycles. So it can get a little confusing at times which ones need to be updated, but for us, not for them. With a varied background, including congestion management, project development and coordination, and asset management analysis, Jesse seeks to align performance-based planning and programming with local and regional planning goals. He has served as co-chair of the Eastern Transportation Coalition's RITIS user group, that's RITIS, for the past decade, while also working closely with PennDOT District 6 to provide planning assistance for the multi-year, multi-billion-dollar reconstruction of I-95 in Philadelphia. But that also extends into Delaware County and up into Bucks County too. So again, 3 people working hard to make transportation better in our region. So I will turn it over to, I guess, Ryan first. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you for the lovely introduction. So good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming to the PennDOT Connects presentation. I'm biased, but I said I'd come to this one other than the HOP one. This is going to be more entertaining for y'all. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. We had some really good introduction there, but just in way of some additional background, Alyson, do you want to share a little bit about additional background?
I think Stacy covered it, but hi everybody, I'm Alyson Dressman from the Office of Capital Programs at DVRPC. And
that's right, and as we mentioned, I'm Ryan Whittington, and self-titled PennDOT Connects Coordinator with PennDOT District 6. So just, we've got a lot we want to cover today, and when we were brainstorming what topic to really present on, we were asked to come present on PennDOT Connects. And as you're going to see, if you haven't heard of PennDOT Connects before, there's a lot that gets covered from a local municipal planning level to a regional planning level to a statewide planning level. We're involved in many aspects of it, and our intent today is to provide you a good overview of not only how PennDOT Connects can help municipalities plan for their communities to be better communities, more connected, how you can partner with PennDOT and DVRPC to implement those plans, but we want to give you a glimpse into what design delivery also looks like for PennDOT and how municipalities can, best be served by interacting with PennDOT along the way. So we'll be covering a little bit about the design delivery process. We're going to get into planning and funding resources, both at a statewide but a local level as well. We're going to talk purpose and need and how communities can get involved in the development of PennDOT's purpose and need statements really drives why projects are needed. We're going to go into preliminary engineering, final design, construction, and a little bit of maintenance as well. And all of that with a little bit of time at the end for questions and just general conversation. And any hard questions are going to Jesse. So PennDOT at a glance, and you've probably seen this figure before, but it always blows my mind to consider just the amount of infrastructure that we have to deal with here. So on a statewide level, consider there are 67 counties that the state of Pennsylvania contains, each with their own local government. Within those counties, there are about 2,560 municipalities, each with their own local government. That's about the same number of total bridges in District 6 that needs to be maintained. District 6 being the Montgomery County, Delaware County. You can see the area here. So a massive amount of people involved at the statewide level in making sure that things get done efficiently and in the right way. Airports aren't mentioned here as well, but PennDOT gets involved in the realm of aviation as well.
All right, so just a little bit about DVRPC. Stacy gave a great brief overview of some of the things we do, but we are the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for the Philadelphia region. So that includes 2 states, a little bit of New Jersey, a little bit of PA, including all of the District 6 counties that Ryan just pointed out. So we have the 9 counties, 1 large city of Philadelphia, 3 smaller cities, 350 municipalities, and that shakes out to thousands of neighborhoods. And so we like to say that we act as a mix of a governmental agency, planning consultant, and a foundation. So what that means is our work kind of falls into 3 different buckets. We plan, which involves a lot of convening and educating and setting goals and priorities and figuring out strategies to meet those goals. And we also do a lot of informing. We have a lot of data and mapping that happens at DVRPC, and I'll mention some of that later on. And we also create publications and conduct studies and create reports. And then finally, we do a lot of support through technical assistance. We do pass-through funding, which I'll talk a little bit about, and we even manage some projects.
So just taking a brief glance at where you may interact with PennDOT in the community. This is just a smattering of images of typical types of projects or activities you might see on the road, but I just wanted to highlight the massive difference in types of activities that PennDOT's involved in. In the far upper right, minor paving projects, right? Back roads of communities that are still state roads, maybe there's under 1,000 cars on them, to the bottom middle image, that was Hurricane Ida a few years ago, and probably my favorite image of debris removal. Trying to develop a specification for a contractor to remove a dumpster from the creek is a wonder. Same image on the left there, you can kind of see the disaster damage, but also safety projects. So there's a lot of highway safety improvement program jobs that PennDOT's involved in, things like road diets that you see the before and after to slow down traffic and create safer communities. So let's take a look at the design delivery process on a whole. No one spelled this out for me when I started out in engineering 16 years ago, and I think it's just helpful to understand the pathway that projects go through, because jobs can be mysteries, and sometimes it can feel like a black box. PennDOT Connects is here to really demystify what happens in that black box. So, we really start with planning and conceptual engineering before moving into preliminary engineering, into final design, and then construction. So in that planning and conceptual engineering process, this is where we're doing our data collection, analysis. Property owners are getting notice of intent to enter letters saying you might see people in orange construction vests out, scratching their heads at the sidewalk or the bridge. We're developing our purpose and need, and I've got a slide where I want to speak to that specifically. That's a very specific term that we use for federal funding and state funding. And then we're evaluating all our alternatives. Many projects don't have a very detailed analysis, right? It's a culvert that's blocked and we need to clear, or a culvert that's falling apart we need to replace. But some larger projects have a more intensive alternatives analysis that needs to take place. At the conclusion of this is Scrooge McDuck. We're going to look for money at this point, right? So we've done enough study, enough analysis. We load in some healthy contingency, knowing that we are looking into a crystal ball at this point, and we look for funding. This is where we phone up our friends at DVRPC. Hey guys, we need some money for this project. Moving into preliminary engineering, this is where we're starting to flesh out, you can think of it as the frame of the car. We're not putting the electronics in it yet, but we kind of need to know what the frame of the vehicle looks like. This is where we're really developing what are the type, the size, and the location of the features that we want to be building here in order to solve for the project's purpose and need. We're looking at design criteria, which updates constantly, and we're also running safety studies, analyses, and a bunch of preliminary coordination to understand what kind of constraints are at the site. Moving into final design, we're wrapping up utility coordination, we're doing right-of-way acquisition, we're developing our final plans, specifications, and estimates. And that gateway between preliminary engineering and final design, where so many projects get held up, is the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. This is the area that I spend most of my time in. And so this is the process that considers social, economic, natural resources, and cultural resources, among other items. And we have to have an approved environmental document under the National Environmental Policy Act before we are allowed to move forward into final design. That leaves us with construction. And as you can see at the very end and the very bottom of the slide here, throughout this whole process is ongoing stakeholder and public participation. And where PennDOT Connect sits is really pulling that coordination up to that conceptual and planning phase, where traditionally on many PennDOT projects, like culvert replacements I keep coming back to, there wasn't much coordination taking place. Maybe you'd get a letter from PennDOT saying we're going to construction, surprise. That was an issue on McDade Boulevard not too many years ago. PennDOT Connects is a program that we really implemented to try and solve for that. So we're coordinating with communities at a much earlier place in design.
All right, so as Ryan talked about earlier, we're kind of going to walk through the different columns that he just showed there. So early on, we want to talk about DVRPC planning assistance. So we provide planning assistance to identify potential projects and get funding early on. And a few ways that we do this are these three programs that I'm going to talk about. So first is our TCDI program, which is the Transportation and Community Development Initiative. It is a grant opportunity that funds local planning initiatives that also advance the goals of our regional long-range plan. TCDI funds studies and plans that can then help develop project ideas. So there's an example here on the right. This is actually the FY23 TCDI recipient, one of them, DCTMA. And this is the result of that grant, which is the Chester Pike Corridor Multimodal Safety Improvement Study. And then more recently in FY25, Collingdale and Darby boroughs were awarded a TCDI grant for the McDade Boulevard Concept Development Study. So that's one of our programs. We also offer a program called Supporting Communities, which is kind of aimed at better connecting the transportation infrastructure needs of disadvantaged communities with available funding for planning and implementation. So what this can look like is help with community engagement to identify needs. It can also include help coming up with concepts to address previously identified needs, and then also implementation assistance like help finding and applying to grants. And then we also have our Regional Trails program, which is a program that provides planning assistance and financial support to folks looking to develop trails in our region. So it's a cash grants from the William Penn Foundation. Then it also includes help from staff at DVRPC that can help provide municipal and county partners with technical assistance when evaluating the feasibility and planning of trail segment, or when you're looking to obtain outside funding outside of this program. So just a quick look at a recent RTP recipient. This is actually just down the road, the Nailers Run Trail. So in 2024, the RTP announced $2 million of awards, and that went across 12 projects, including the one shown here, which received $200,000. And this is actually that orange kind of red segment, and it is going to fund the design of a pedestrian bridge over Marshall Road, and it's going to connect to existing trails, and then also a trail segment that's in progress. So that's just a brief example of what this program can look like.
Okay, so continuing on in the department of what resources are available in this planning phase of projects for both communities and across the state here. PennDOT Connects as a program, and if you haven't been to the PennDOT Connects website, I highly recommend you visit it. It's got a lot of resources available to communities that I wasn't even aware of. So there's on-demand online training. Think of it as small snapshot trainings, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, where you're able to watch videos on various topics. Training courses and workshops are available. So a few weeks back, there was a municipality online sort of conference presentation that took place. Those are announced on that website. Pre-recorded drop-ins that you can watch, tech sheets that are developed. You can kind of see a little bit on the far right there. Discretionary programs, grant funding opportunities, all of which have hyperlinks and QR codes for you to go check out these programs where money is available. And then I want to highlight the transportation and land use planning assistance in the bottom there. This is the opportunity. You can see the form. It's just fill out a form, describe the issue that you want to receive more information on in your community, and the PennDOT Connects program will send out an individual who's an expert in that area. Say the example, sidewalk connectivity. You want to develop a sidewalk plan for your community. You're not sure where gaps exist. You're not quite sure where people are going, where are the generators, where do they want to go. PennDOT will actually send somebody out to your community for a half day or a full day session, do a field view with you, and really get you started on that plan. That's the sidewalk example. There's lots of safety type workshops that they've conducted as well, geared at safety funds. Really an amazing program that's available. And the number, this has been going on since around 2017, and they've always had leftover funds. So I think it's a fairly underutilized resource, and highly recommend you check it out. It's as simple as filling out that form. And I'll use this as a mention. I've got some handouts for the folks in the room here that I'll hand out afterwards. It's 2 pages, and on the back of that is a QR code that'll take you right to that form if you're interested in it. Okay, so let's talk purpose and need. I'm just kind of curious, has anybody heard purpose and need before? Not just general terms, but in the sense of a project. There are 4 hands that went up. This is why this slide exists. So purpose and need, right? When we're going to be using millions of dollars of taxpayer money to build infrastructure, we should probably develop a collective goal statement before we get started so we all know what we're working towards. That's really at a high level the purpose and need statement. So the purpose really is this overarching statement of what the project is intended to accomplish. This project is intended to create a safer experience for motorists traveling through this intersection. Marple Crossroads comes to mind as one nearby that has a lot of issues. Needs. The needs are those problems, specific, factual, measured, analytical problems that are really preventing you from accomplishing that. For bridge projects, this is really easy. There's concrete falling off the bridge. That is a need. Where the community can really help us out here is, what are you observing in your community? When we come to you in that early planning stage where we have, that's a 2-sided piece of paper, but imagine it being blank, a blank sheet of paper instead of a plan sheet showing you the lanes that we're closing down. When we're coming to you with just those big picture ideas, PennDOT's coming with some real concrete needs. I hate using that term in this business, but concrete needs, right? We have bridges that are failing or maintenance that's required, a road that needs to be resurfaced. What PennDOT Connects hopes to accomplish is what's going on in your community. You're the ones who are living in this. I live in Delaware County, so I know a lot going on in Delaware County, but when I go to Upper Bucks County, I really need to know from the people who travel every day to and from work, where are the problem areas? Where are you observing safety issues or freight impacts, right? Now we have that last mile delivery, Amazon trucks running all over the place, new community impacts. What about any related studies, right, that your community is involved in? These are the types of topics that will guide you through as we start talking PennDOT Connects for specific projects. Stormwater management, where is there flooding in the community that we're not seeing on the everyday? And then I just want to highlight, purpose and needs are really used to help us select alternatives as we work through the transportation delivery process, right? So we're going to come to a point where we have to figure out, are we building a roundabout or are we widening an intersection? Are we doing a road diet or are we maybe increasing the width of intersections to add left turn lanes at some strategic locations? In other words, we're going to start eliminating alternatives and solutions. That's where the purpose and need comes in. There's going to be some solutions that maybe don't fully meet our needs. The one thing I want to highlight, though, is goals. Goals are secondary objectives. They can't be used to eliminate alternatives, but think of them as things that are important to your community and important to the surrounding area. So I've had many projects, for example, that are in historically sensitive areas or ecologically sensitive areas, and that becomes a goal. We aren't going to eliminate an alternative because it has an impact to a wetland, let's say. That's not cause for elimination of alternative, but we may have a goal to reduce the overall impact to that surrounding environment. Just a quick example of purpose and needs, and unfortunately this is not a Delaware County example, but a good example of how complicated this process can become and the importance of talking to the community to really understand what's going on. This is a bridge project. This is in Bethlehem, quite a bit north from here, but it was a bridge project, a historic bridge rehabilitation project. When we started looking at this job, though, there was many more issues than just a bridge problem. There were safety issues, right? So evidence that there were higher incidences of crash rates on these approach ramps than what we would anticipate given the normal statewide averages. There was congestion issues at certain areas. This is preventing emergency services from crossing the bridge. They'd actually avoid the bridge because it was so inconsistent, the timing to get across the bridge. They'd find alternate routes. It was too inconsistent. Congestion was a big problem. The structure condition was an issue, right? In this particular example, we have 2 steel trusses, and we also have got a lot of concrete arches in between. Very different types of structures to deal with, different problems that each has. And then mobility from a community perspective. There's a lot of business on the north side, a lot of business on the south side, community events. This is where Music Fest takes place. So mobility was another need here identified. There's a sidewalk here, but there's bicyclists that are trying to use the roadway, and the roadway is not safe, and the sidewalk's not wide enough to support them. Now, how do we understand the data that comes into purpose and needs, and how do we start collecting this data? There's many methods. I mentioned survey, right? We're sending people out there to understand what kind of utilities are present. But a highlight for a resource that I want to make everybody aware of is called PennDOT One Map, or MPMS One Map. But PennDOT One Map, if you just type that into Google, is an online mapping program that PennDOT has with an incredible amount of data, spatial data at your fingertips. In way of an example, once you start this mapping software up, you can load up a pre-selected tip map, HOP map, or environmental screening map. If you want to know what highway occupancy permits are going on in your community and what their status is, HOP map. If you want to know the tip, what projects are in progress, completed, or in construction, just load up the tip map. All of this is available. In this example, and I use this pretty frequently just to get an at-a-glance look at what are the issues surrounding a project as early as possible, that environmental screening map is very helpful. But you can see in this case, we've loaded in DCNR trails, we've got railroad crossings, county boundaries, and local roads. And all of that can be populated. External data sources can be added as well. You do not need to have any experience using GIS to be able to use this feature of PennDOT's online programs. I really, really recommend you check it out. That's PennDOT One Map.
All right, so the big question. This is not a presentation about the TIP, so we can talk about that later if you have questions on that. But I did just want to just touch on this question as we talk about the full process here. So maybe you're already familiar with what the TIP is, but at DVRPC, we are responsible for working with all of our partners to develop and maintain the regional TIP, one for New Jersey, one for Pennsylvania. And that stands for the Transportation Improvement Program, which ends up being the agreed upon list of priority transportation projects in the region. And so where do those projects come from? So projects can originate from needs that have been identified at various levels, as you can see here. Major cities and counties can sponsor projects, which means that they bring them forward to be considered for the TIP. And another key way that that projects can be considered for the TIP are by being identified by asset management systems from PennDOT or SUPTA or the other DOT and transit operators. So DVRPC relies heavily on our stakeholders to bring those projects forward. And then we work with them to prioritize among all the different project proposals that we receive to figure out what can make it onto the TIP. We do have a limited amount of funding, so not every project can make it on there. But if you take one thing away from this slide, because this is a very complicated topic, at the municipal level, the best way to get a project onto the TIP is to coordinate with your county, because we work really closely with them. So just wanted to touch on that. So work with your county to bring projects forward as candidate projects. But also there are a number of grant opportunities out there to help fund a project. So just wanted to touch on these. You might be familiar with some of them already. There are a few that PennDOT does provide, including the Automated Red Light Enforcement Grant Program, ARLI, Green Light Go, and the Multimodal Transportation Fund. So I do want to call back to what Ryan said about visiting the Connects website. There's a ton of great information about, if you want to look into the eligibility and the different application windows and all the different materials you need to apply to those grants. It's all right there. And of course, we're also here to help. There are also federal programs, the Transportation Alternatives Set-Aside Program, Safe Routes to Schools, Safe Streets for All, and happy to talk more about those different programs and how to get started. We do provide technical assistance for different programs. One example is that we have a technical assistance program for Pennsylvania for the TASA federal funding program. I'm going to call out Joe Natal, who will talk on that in session 3 today. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely attend that. We also provide letters of support for different grants that folks might need some letters of support for. Again, our Supporting Communities program also covers technical assistance for funding. So we can help match different local priorities to funding opportunities and help along the way. And then also want to mention our DVRPC data center, which has a lot of information, really great, complement to the one map and all of the other data that PennDOT has available. We have a lot there that I do have a slide on that later on, so I won't talk too much there, but definitely check out the PennDOT Connects website and all of the different materials that are on there. They're super helpful.
All right, want to shout out to our friends at Safe Routes Partnership. This is a group that we got hooked up with, what was it, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, that again, found the contact information for the PennDOT Connects program for District 6, reached out and said, hey, can we have a conversation? They've got a workshop that you can register for by taking a look at that QR code. This is an organization that is really geared at helping municipalities achieve those funding goals, helping you identify what types of programs and funding is available, especially when it comes to safe routes, right? So think pedestrians, bicyclists, folks that are moving to and from areas. So there's some information here. Like I said, scan that QR code. I wanted to get that information out to everybody here because this is a really great group that is here to assist you. And just one other quick thing on this last slide. This grant proposal manual, it's no joke. PennDOT has a manual for absolutely everything. And that's how I've understood everything about this world. But this manual was updated, you can see July 2024 of last year. So they actually went out to different municipalities, grant applicants, folks who were actually creating these applications and succeeding and failing, and loaded those lessons learned into an update to this manual. So it is an updated manual based on some lessons learned and how to actually be successful in some of these grant programs. All right. Quick snapshot back to the engineering world. As we transition out of that conceptual engineering, as we transitioning out of alternatives analysis, we start the process of preliminary engineering. Now, hopefully, we've been to the field before this point, but I wanted to give you a snapshot of what goes through the brains of engineers. It's a scary place, but this is an example project on 611, again, not in this area, but up in Bucks County. And when we went to this site at first, the needs of the project were simple. There's a bridge. And the bridge is, in need of repair, rehabilitation, or replacement. Where our brains go right away are what are the constraints that we're dealing with, right? There are geometric constraints. There's approach geometry of the roadway that we have to deal with. Very straight in one direction, starts to curve in another. Where are there intersections that are starting to come in? On the right, you see, that's DCNR-owned land. That's the Delaware Canal Park and Trail. It's also a National Historic Landmark. Okay, we've got a recreational resource and we have a resource that has some special protections for historic. The creek that this passes over is Cook's Creek. About 150 feet away is the Delaware River. Okay, now we have backwater from the Delaware River that we have to deal with. And oh, by the way, it's a National Wild and Scenic River. Another hoop to jump through is National Park Service. We've got aerial lines, so there's utilities we got to deal with, and something you don't see on the left side is an old bridge that PennDOT abandoned to the property owner. Problem was the paperwork wasn't filled out properly, and the property owner didn't know the bridge is their property. Not until they were deported by the United States because of their involvement in the IRA, it was an issue. So look, this is the mess that engineering can be. It's a bridge replacement project. How hard can it be? Good Lord, you have no idea, right? What does it look like as we start to get into construction for this? I just wanted to give you a snapshot. This is what it ended up looking like. So speaking with the local community, it became very clear that this road needed to remain open during construction. So this construction project took about 2 years to get through, a little over 2 years. Could have been accomplished in about a year if we had closed the road down. But because of that need to maintain it for local traffic, we did a single lane with a red light on one end and a red light on the other that helped maintain traffic throughout. If you were to turn this camera around on Google Street View, you'd see that we had to do the same exact thing for the parking lot. It was an absolute mess, but it got done. And here's what it looks like at the end of the day. Very similar to the preliminary engineering picture when we went out there, right? Our goal really is to get in and get out with as little impact as possible of the surrounding environment. All the laws, regulations, and permits that are in place dictate that. But you can see the bridge ended up a little bit wider to accommodate current design. Now, what does engagement look like in preliminary engineering? Used to be that PennDOT had a very prescriptive approach to public involvement when I started. It was only 16 years ago. We would hold one preliminary engineering public meeting, one final design public meeting, and in between that we would meet with public officials once, or twice. Everything else was a special stakeholder meeting, a property owner that wanted to talk about a specific concern, a community group that was, a little bit up in arms about something we had to go talk to. PennDOT Connects in 2017 really kind of shifted that puzzle a bit. Now we're coming out to speak to the county planning commission and municipality back in that conceptual engineering phase. So by the time we come speak to you in preliminary engineering, we're following up. We're not saying, hey, here's the project, purpose and need, what do you say? By the way, we're 6 months into the project and we can't change X, Y, or Z because it's gonna cost money. that's like the number one project manager thing. I'm sorry, but the budget's set and I can't increase the cost anymore. This process is here to help get out in front of that. So other touch points, what you might see us in preliminary engineering, of course we've got those public meetings. You might see us for the Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. If you're a consulting party, somebody who has a legal, an economic, a cultural resource concern. Stakeholder meetings, emergency service groups will be met with, similar schools. Maintenance agreements. This is something that I think as a whole, we've really been trying to inject into conversation earlier. When we build a sidewalk on the side of a bridge because a community wants to connect two ends, PennDOT will not maintain that sidewalk, not in most cases. In any case I've seen. We're looking for the municipality to maintain the sidewalk. What does that mean? Remove the sticks that are out there and shovel it during, actually that's not even there anymore. It used to be shovel the snow during the winter. That's not even a requirement anymore. So it's really just make sure that you dust it off here and there and get rid of trash. Any structural maintenance, concrete falling apart, is PennDOT's responsibility. They don't want municipalities out there jackhammering on the bridge. We'll take care of the concrete, you take care of the sweeping. Highway occupancy permits come up as well, and you might be seeing us in the community as well, or next door.
All right, so getting into what some of this local coordination looks like. On our team, we call it just PennDOT Connects, but this is all PennDOT Connects, so for today we're gonna call it local coordination. So this is really a process that we do for a lot of projects where we have DVRPC subject matter experts weigh in on a few different things about the project across different planning areas. So whether it's freight and what type of freight activity goes on there, environmental considerations, bike, pedestrian, transit planning, safety, different things like that. They'll bring studies forward or data or whatever we have to kind of support the conversation that is going to occur with the county planning partners and the municipality, and then any other stakeholders. So that includes TMAs, advocacy groups, SEPTA in a lot of cases. And so these meetings are really to ensure that local plans, local goals, existing planning work is being taken into consideration for these different projects. And so the outcome is that we document everything, and we also, this kind of initiates this ongoing coordination where we know the right folks to talk to, and we have this kind of existing relationship, and as these projects go through their lifetime. So on the right is an example of some older documentation, excuse me, for the PA 291, sorry, the PA 291 drainage improvement project, which initially had a very limited scope, it being a drainage project. But through this process, there was a lot of coordination with the local, municipality and different stakeholders and the DVRPC SMEs. And it revealed a desire for a portion of the East Coast Greenway to be constructed as part of this project. The proposed East Coast Greenway was adjacent to the roadway. So after lots of discussion and this process, PennDOT not only agreed to acquire the necessary right-of-way for the trail, but to actually construct a piece of it. And so this was, a real big success to have this coordination and this kind of alignment with local desire and what was able to be done as part of the project. So just wanted to mention that as an example of just a past project with this local coordination. And then I'll touch on one more. Again, PA 291. This is a bridge project, the Governor Prince Boulevard. So this is kind of what this process looks like when we're going through it. So there's a lot, there's planning studies and there's different stakeholders. We have the airport right there and the wildlife refuge and some analysis that had been done about the East Coast Greenway. And there was kind of this, again, conversation about the trail desires in the area and plans that had happened and studies that had been conducted. And so there was this conversation about safe connections for cyclists and others. And so this work really resulted in the inclusion of extra space on the new bridge. to accommodate a future trail. So there weren't connections on either side yet, so not quite that trail yet, but the space. And as we know, it takes a long time for a bridge to then get reconstructed again in the future. So it's really important when we're able to do this during these projects to really accommodate that future work and not let some of that planning work fall to the wayside, and really just bring everyone together around what could happen in different locations here. So I mentioned earlier that I was going to talk about some tools and maps that we provide at DVRPC. And so this is kind of a short list. We actually have a lot more than this in the data center that I mentioned. So again, if you just Google DVRPC data center, it'll all be there. But we have a lot of maps, applications, downloadable data. So whether it's counts and things like that. This is an example of our sidewalk coverage map that can be really useful in a couple of different ways here that I have at the top. So in that local coordination, we rely on our own data and maps as well, in addition to everything that PennDOT has, where we can say, hey, here's the planning context of this project. It's not just this bridge, it's also this bridge plus the sidewalk network and the bicycle network and all these things. So it can be really helpful in that and any additional needs that might exist or just coordination that needs to happen. Hey, there's bus service here. Let's make sure we're talking to SEPTA while this is happening. Let's talk about detours and construction time and all of that. And then it's also really helpful earlier on in the problem identification phase. Again, to complement one map, we have all of these ways to identify if a need exists, and that can be really helpful there. And then also when you're applying to grants and trying to secure funding, this can be really great justification for different things. And we've seen a lot of folks be very successful using different data.
All right, now time for the most boring slide, which is just a picture of PennDOT's electronic construction management system. I've got a good picture of construction later, but final design is really living and breathing in this system. It is where PennDOT is developing the final plans, specifications, and estimates. This is where we're pulling in those community issues that started in that PennDOT Connects process sometimes 2 years prior and has now developed into a plan, a specification, or maybe even a special commitment that we're holding the contractor to. So those mitigation commitments is what I'm talking about there. We're also working through final permitting. This is another area we get jammed up pretty frequently. It's either permitting, right-of-way acquisition, or utilities, and railroad included in that. Those are the three main areas that jam up a project in final design. Looking at community engagement in final design, really it's following up on those previous issues. One thing that we were trying to get, and there's a lot of distance to make up, we're trying to get better at, is in final design, coming back to communities and saying, that thing that we spoke about 2 years ago, I still remember it. Decisions were made for reasons that make logical sense, and I'm going to explain those things to you now. We were able to accommodate it, we weren't able to accommodate it, but here's the reasoning why. It's there to keep lines of communication open as design continues to get finalized, and also to communicate those key decisions. And moving into construction, just two very different projects you can see on the screen there, just highlighting what something might look like when a bridge is closed versus maintaining traffic, right? That is a pretty large impact. One point I want to make about construction is pre-construction meetings. I maybe see 50% of the time the municipality shows up for a pre-construction meeting. These are here for, they're very, very mechanical and almost pre-done, right? It's people reading off of sheets of paper. But afterwards, it's the opportunity for you to meet the contractor, to meet the assistant construction engineer for PennDOT, basically the project manager for construction, to meet the resident engineer who's going to be out there holding the contractor's feet to the fire, making sure they're building what we designed. It's there to help you introduce yourself and also to make your concerns perhaps known for construction. I really want to encourage folks to participate in those pre-construction meetings.
All right, and as we finish up, I just wanted to take a brief detour to talk about one more program offered by DVRPC, which is our Complete Streets Resurfacing Program. This occurs in coordination with repaving work on state routes. So we really are trying to leverage the restriping opportunities that happen as a result of, or as part of these projects to implement complete streets improvements. So that might be high visibility crosswalks, bike lanes, bus zones, daylighting, things like that. So here's an example of kind of what that can look like. A past project has a lot of different components. The segments go through feasibility screenings. A lot of recommendations come up for certain segments that could be done with paint. And that's when we also have municipal outreach, where we come and say, hey, there's some ideas for what might be able to be improved on this segment as part of this and at no cost to you. And then we seek, again, that maintenance agreement between repavings. So this is just another way that DVRPC can work as a conduit between PennDOT and municipalities and really take opportunities presented by certain projects to implement local priority improvements as feasible and as locally desired as well. So just wanted to pop this in here to make everyone aware of this program. All right, so that's all we have. We can take some questions now. I think we have, a few minutes here. So yeah, and thank you for being here and for listening. You have one back?
I was wondering for the Safe Streets for All program, if you are at all concerned about funding cuts, or should we be concerned about it? Because grants take a lot of effort and time to apply for it, and we're just trying to assess the risk of doing federal grant applications.
That's a very fair question. And yeah, I think that one we are, I think, less concerned about because of the more recent NOFO being published. I think that was a few weeks ago. I'm looking. Desi, I don't know if you have any other context to add, but I think just we've been talking about the fact that they're still soliciting projects for the new round, even though some things have been tweaked in the application at the actual NOFO. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good question, and honestly, yes, very concerned. Please, if you have specific projects and want to reach out to us, definitely do that. Kevin Murphy at DVRPC is involved in a lot of the Safe Streets for All work. We do feel somewhat confident with the planning grants. Hopefully, kind of contract issues can get worked out there. And again, it is encouraging that a recent notice of funding opportunity was opened up. So hopefully we'll start to see those funds flowing again. But yeah, I would just encourage you to reach out if you're having specific issues, because it seems like it's sort of being handled on a project by project basis. So we can try to help where we can to just make sure that things start flowing again.
Any other questions?
I'm with the Collindale Planning Commission. We're just finding out we need to rank some TCDI grant programs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just understanding what that means when submitting that. Like, that's just the information part of the project.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? It's about
Yeah, I'm trying to
TCDI.
pull it together too as I'm just finding
That's okay.
out. So let me look up the name of what it is. It is the data Boulevard improvements with the DVR, you guys. We have certain projects listed with you. Does anyone, I don't know what they are. I'm just wondering about this too. But what is that first step you mentioned that we received the grant for earlier in the presentation?
Oh, the TCDI program. Yeah, if you have specific questions about that program and the next steps there, the best person to reach out to is Spencer Goper at DVRPC.
Is he on this list?
No, but I can write down his email for you. But he manages that and can help you with the next steps there.
All right, if we're going to meet this weekend to pick some to go forward with.
Okay, yeah.
So having a person to contact would be great. I can share it with the president of the commission.
Definitely.
So I'll come on that.
Yeah, I will, yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
For sure.
I think there's no other questions. I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to be with us this morning. And if it's one thing you take away with you, it's that sheet of paper. That contact information is present online at about 100 different locations, but not in one central location. So wanted to make sure you walked away with a good list of contacts depending on the questions you have. If you have anything after this session that you want to reach out, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on the website for PennDOT. It's on your sheets of paper as well. I kind of think of myself as the operator at PennDOT. If you don't know who you need to reach, give me a call first or give me an email first, and I'll connect you with the right person. All right? Thank you.
Thank you.